Thank you very much for watching Job Seeker Nation. If you're with us live, thank you very much. And feel free to join us in the chat. That's where the magic is happening. We want to know your questions, your thoughts, and all the things that we're talking about, as we'll always interrupt with what we're talking about so that we can talk about what you want to talk about. We got some great guests, as we always do, but a couple that are special in my heart. So without due, first I've got to introduce Jack Kelly.
Wait, I'm not
Of
special
course.
in your heart?
Well,
Wait, I thought that you were talking about
yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. You're
Well,
special
you're
in my
with me
heart.
every week.
I love
Of course
you.
you are, Jack. Jack, you're my partner. How can we? We're like joint at the hip. We're like Siamese twins now. So how can we not be? But definitely, don't want to ever forget Jack, founder of WeCruiter.jobs, compliance recruiter, Forbes senior contributor, and want to also introduce Hannah Morgan. She was on the show last year, joining us back. Of course, she's a contributor to U.S. World Report, and also her giant blog, careersherpa.net. How are you, Hannah?
I'm great. Thanks.
Well,
Happy
thank you for
December
joining.
1st, everybody.
Yeah.
I
Woohoo! We're in
know
December.
already. It's a lot going on. So it just seems like the news never ends. And of course, joining us for the first time is Robin Ryan. And if you don't know her Forbes column, you should. And it's real easy to find. And Robin is been around the block several times as far as her content and as far as her advice, and Lord knows she's got tons of content. If you ever go to her blog and just look through the web, she's got tons of it, and of course her book.
Oh my goodness! Yeah,
her
Oh, wait, let me
books.
see the book.
Hannah's got all 8.
Wait,
Yeah,
okay. Hey,
She's got all 8.
can I see that,
I'm,
Hannah?
I'm a fangirl. I'm a
that's
Robin
Yeah.
fangirl.
Thank you.
That's right. You've written more books, Robin, than all of us combined. So
Yeah.
Okay.
we definitely want to appreciate all the things that you do and all
Thank
the
you.
rest of what you all do. It seems like we got a few people who are in the chat already. And I'm going to give you guys a shout out as soon as we get started. Feel free to insert comments, questions, connect with each other during the show, and we will gladly make sure that we notice you the best way we possibly can. First of all, I know this is a hot topic and is about to become a more hot topic only because companies are the ones that are initiating this discussion now about having a resume list hiring process. Now, Jack wrote about it a couple of weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a couple of weeks now. Maybe Jack can insert some of the discussions he's had. I believe it's one with a partner of Indeed that you had a talk with their CEO, right, about it?
Oh, right. When they were talking about just, it wasn't me saying to get rid of the resume. It was
Right, it
the
was the company,
CEO.
yes.
Yeah.
Make it clear.
Where it's interesting because um, I I hate that I have to be such a cynical guy sometimes because his thing was get rid of the resume. You don't need a resume, but then at the same time he's saying, but we can write a resume for you. So I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait a
I saw
minute.
that.
Right. So you caught on that. So it's like, okay, so you don't write a resume, but we'll do it for you. So then you are using a resume. So it's, I guess what happens with a lot of times what happens, and Robin, you probably see this too, when you get kind of like a PR person reaching out with a story, there's always like, all right, they're trying to, and you can't blame them. They're trying to push their product, their service, their whatever. So,
Mhm.
so I don't know. So I, personally, maybe I'm old fashioned. I think you still need a resume. I think that's important. I think, as a recruiter, I need something to go by, something that I could read and see and get a sense of who the person is. Um, Fast forward 10 years from now, does it have to be the same way? Who cares? But just is something, that you could feel, all right, I get what Hannah does. I see what her responsibilities are, the progression of her career. And then I'm in a position where I could help say, hey, this job is good for you or it's not appropriate. So somehow I think you need it some shape or form. But I'm definitely open minded if someone comes up with a great alternative.
Well, I
Well,
think it
I'm
also
not open-minded. Oh,
I
sorry,
think
Hannah,
it
go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say I think it depends on the type of role. Remember the body shop? Did you quote the body shop, cite the body shop in your article? Because many years ago, what's old is new again. The Body Shop did this. They said, we'll hire anybody who comes through our door, right? And
Mhm.
it was retail. But
Mhm.
so they obviously had a conversation with the person. If the person was articulate and they were clean and they looked like they could be, they would
Mhm.
hire them, right?
Yeah.
So I think it depends on the level, the type of job you're
Right.
applying for. Why would you need a resume to work in retail? As long as you put up a good conversation and you look
Mhm.
good and you know about the product, why would I not hire you?
That's a good
Yeah.
point. It's not sometimes I think through the lens of kind of the people I deal with that are, more that mid to senior level white collar. You forget
Mhm.
there's a whole other world out there, people doing
Right.
other things. So yeah, you're absolutely right. In fact, I saw that during, because of the holidays, UPS, FedEx, Amazon, all of them are saying they're kind of dropping a lot of the criteria that they're looking for because they just have to get people hired really super quick,
Yeah.
to
Tell
get
me
this
about
stuff
it.
out to you. So they're doing away with, uh, formal interviews, doing away with drug tests, doing away with a whole lot of things
Mhm.
to make it happen.
Yeah.
And I have
Robin?
one thing to add too. Think about this. Now, it's more the professional level and executive level. But if you find a job opening on Glassdoor, Indeed, LinkedIn, they ask you to upload a resume to apply. And are you going to miss all those opportunities if you choose not to have one? I do not think so. So I think the resume, at least for the next 5 years, is here. It's important. It has to be well written, and it has to get through the applicant tracking system, which seems to be a problem for some people. But I don't think it's going away.
What do you
Yeah.
folks think about video
Go ahead.
resumes?
Mm. You know, the kids, and by that, my son is a Gen Z, and some of the Gen Zs and the younger millennials, they have tried it. What they find is that the employer sometimes doesn't see it or doesn't read it. If it's like a 30-second, kind of spiel, it might work in that respect. They're getting more of the higher views where they get asked questions. So maybe they send them 5, 6 questions. They have 20 minutes on a video to record their answers and send them in. And the reason why a lot of recruiters are telling me that they do this is, hey, we can go through them really fast and I send the good ones on to the hiring manager, and it cuts through a lot of the initial interviewing that we would have to do. So that's what I'm seeing. But I don't have any demand at my end as a career counselor for people to help them make a video resume at this time.
Yeah. Probably because they're making them on their own. All they have to do is go on TikTok
Yeah.
and do whatever they do. And also, they can now reach a lot of companies that are on TikTok. And of
Mhm.
course, why would I apply to a place where the company is not? So
Mhm.
that's not bad thinking. It's logical. But at the same time, for a company that doesn't ask for a video resume, it doesn't make sense. The question
Right.
is that where companies are and where they're looking, they're not looking just to sell their stuff, too. They're
Right.
also there to recruit. So
Mhm.
you have recruiters and you have companies on these platforms, and you know to have something and have content go through where they exist
Mhm.
is a resume, in fact, over time, right?
Right. And
So
it's
I think,
level too. We're talking
yeah,
about the same thing we talked about before. If you're looking to be a driver, if you're looking for a restaurant job, if you're looking for retail jobs, so it depends on the level.
right.
The higher up you go, the it all changes. And
Sure,
so
sure. So C-suite definitely you would need to apply, and of course the senior management positions you would. I think everything else is pretty much up to grab. Although as a senior manager and as in leadership, it does help to have, if it's not a video resume, but to have video content so that you could be known and have warm
Mhm.
contact before a company even thinks and have them to reach out to you and you having to submit something.
Well, you're really good at video, and Jack is good at video, and Hannah. But I will tell you, for the people that I work with on interview coaching, they are bad at it. It's terrifying to them.
Mhm.
And Zoom has been really challenging in the interview process for a lot of people. They have approached it in a very kind of casual way. They don't see it the same as if I get dressed up and I go into the office and the people are in front of me, um, and they're like, oh. and they're looking down and they're looking around. And what they don't understand is when you do that, you break that connection. Really important. So prepping and being prepared to be able to use that medium has been really challenging for a lot of job hunters at all levels.
Yeah,
What do you think,
yeah.
Hannah?
I I love shiny and new. And so video
Yeah.
resumes aren't shiny or new. They've been around for a long time. As a supplement, why not? Right?
Mhm.
I think that when you talk about social media and just the opportunity to engage with people and to get on their radar, having a video resume out there or targeting a video resume for a specific company and sending that as a way to get on their radar through social media, why not?
Mhm.
I don't think it's going to replace the standard resume. But I also remember, I think it was Zappos, again, back 2009, 10, something like that.
Mhm.
They requested video cover letters, which was a great way, a
Mhm.
better
I
tool than
remember.
a video resume. Like, let me give you
Right.
an overview of why I
Yeah.
want to work for your company, and you can hear me and see me do it. So it's like a sort of thing. It was an optional thing. So
That's a good idea. That's interesting.
mhm.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
I
And
can't take
going
good old Zappos.
Yeah. Yeah. And going back to what Hannah mentioned before the pandemic, there were more and more companies getting on board about having a at least paperless resume available because there was more than just the body shop that was beginning to take this. There were some other companies that were planning in 2020 to go paperless
Mhm.
and to kind of edit the process so there's not as much. Now, on the other side of the pandemic, it seems like they want to add more to the process in some
Yeah.
cases. But,
Well,
we don't have to
I
tread
think
that water
that's
right now.
like that's one of the things the companies, if they have a lot of hiring to do, right, and the recruiters are super overwhelmed. Something has to change with the hiring process. It is not getting faster, it is
Right.
slowing down, and
Yeah.
Mhm.
and if they have a lot of jobs to fill, they have to reinvent, make this different.
Right.
So
Mhm.
I hope there's something out there. Is there,
Abs-
Jack?
Absolutely. I'm telling you, it's so wild. You would
Mhm.
think in a war for talent, a hot job market, great resignation, companies would move really quickly.
Mhm.
They do whatever it takes, but they don't. It's the
Mm,
Right.
wildest thing.
right.
It drives me up a wall because they're acting as if we're still in the midst of the pandemic, like in the early 2020s,
Right.
and not they haven't really, in my opinion, from what I see and hear from people, they and I'm generalizing, they haven't really changed. They haven't adopted to say, hey, we got to move quickly. I mean, I still hear
Right.
from companies that are, 10, 12 interviews over 3, 6 months. People are still getting
Mhm.
ghosted. They're still
Right.
asking ridiculous criteria. Um, it's wild. Like, what do you see, Rob? Because you look at it
Well,
too,
I
right?
look at it differently.
Okay.
And here's the thing that I started to notice. Recently, I had a client who was trying to reach a company. Okay. And she's an account exec. She wanted to go to work for this organization. And she said, they had a little thing on LinkedIn. I sent and I answered the email, nothing happened. I saw it was on ZipRecruiter, nothing happened. And I said, well, let's try the back door. Let's try to go find people who work there, the HR person, the partner, and go through that. So she did.
Mhm.
And, still nothing happened. And then she said, I found the hiring manager. So sent a LinkedIn message. 15 minutes later, they call her. They talked to her on Thursday. They set up the interview with 4 people on Monday. And 1 hour after they were done, she got offered the job, which is absolutely astounding because, as you guys are saying, what I am finding is that it's so slow. We interview this week and then we'll do something next week, and it's going over weeks and multiple people. They think you've got, horns growing behind you or something because they can't see you in person. But what this hiring manager said, and she's a pretty high level person,
Mhm.
we've lost 3 or 4 really good candidates because we moved too slow. And in this market, what we are realizing is you can't move slow like that anymore, or you're going to lose the good people. And it's really hard to find that talent. So I think that now, do I think all companies are doing this? Absolutely not. Some of them are still very old fashioned in their process. As you guys said, I mean, it's not uncommon for me to see taking weeks and weeks for them to move you through all the interviews so that they can make a decision. But some of the smaller ones, some of the more savvier ones are saying, if we take that long, talent's hard to find right now. Jeff will and Anna will both back me up on this. Good talent, most of it's working,
Mhm.
and it's difficult to find. That's why you got recruiters sitting on LinkedIn day in and day out trying to, find people. You want to apply for this job? We got this job, but if you don't have a good LinkedIn profile, you don't have the right keywords, you're not going to get found.
Right. I want to include a couple comments. Sue Griffey, thanks for commenting down in the chat. She says, yes, you still need a resume is great. Initial rounding sample of what you can synthesize and convey. If that job particularly needs you to write and
Yeah.
convey certain information. But yeah, I understand the C-suites definitely, senior management definitely would require that kind of uh, first bit of impact that you could possibly have in hiring you.
Mhm.
And then Shelley Piedmont,
Hey,
a
Shelley.
friend of the show and has been a past guest. And she says, isn't one possible problem with video interviews that you can't skin them like a resume? Recruiters might not like them for that very reason, which is very interesting because they ask for that first, and they spend the time, but they still put a video interview process in place where they are talking to an avatar, and whatever impression comes from that is what they get. So
Mhm.
I think that, to Shelley's point, though, is that recruiters might not like them for that reason, but yet it's still part of the process. But I would
Mhm.
think if it was up front, that might kind of make the process a little bit shorter. Thoughts on that, Jack?
It's I think the companies, we're in my opinion, we're kind of at this inflection point. I think you're going to have certain companies that are going to say to their employees, we're going to give you flexibility, meaning you could work in the office when you want or not work in the
Mhm.
office if you don't want.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to treat you like adults. We're not going to order you to go back to the office. They're going to
Mhm.
move quickly because they're going to know we want to get the best talent. And I think what's going to happen as time goes on, you're going to see this branch off. So the ones who get it, the companies who get, hey, we're going to respect, not only our employees, but the people we're considering to bring aboard. And we're going to do everything in our power to keep them and to upskill them and train them and make sure that they could stay with us. And you have the others who take forever to hire, who don't really care, who say we want you back in the office, it doesn't matter. And I think
Mhm.
those are the ones who are going to lose out. And you're going to really see a bifurcation in this. And there'll be winners and losers. And for job seekers and people who are working, they're going to gravitate to the ones I think most want to be respected and appreciated and valued.
Right.
And so they're going to go in that direction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting. Hannah?
I, I Jack nailed it. I think, we have to see some things change. The companies that are
Mhm.
adapting, that will adapt, that are treating their employees like human beings.
Mhm.
When you make somebody wait in line, nobody likes waiting in line like that. It makes you feel like worthless. And what we're doing to job seekers right now is making them wait in line, and it's making them angry, especially when they know their jobs to be filled. And it's making other people inside the company angry too. But so we have to treat this whole process with more humanness,
See,
respect.
and Hannah, see, you have a great point there because what ends up happening too, and I think they're making a big mistake, these companies, because let's say, I'm a manager in
Mhm.
widget company ABC, and if I'm not quick to hire, and let's say we
Mhm.
lost a person, the rest of us are picking up the slack. And now everyone's getting grumpy and upset because we're picking up the slack. And then, like, why are they not hiring? Is there something wrong? Is the company, are
Mhm.
we in trouble? Um,
Mhm.
so they get nervous. And then what happens, a recruiter go and poach Mark. Now there's another opening. And if you don't do it,
Mm-hmm.
so then you get this downward cascade where
Mhm.
you start losing more people through attrition. It's harder to get people in because now people suss, like, why did this person leave? Why did that person leave? So it's not only the rudeness to the person who's interviewing, but then it falls down to being rude to all the other employees who now
The
you're going to expect to pick up
survivors.
the slack.
Yeah.
Yeah, to
Yeah.
survivors. Yeah.
Yeah,
I,
Robin, what
I'm
what have you
seeing,
been hearing on your side?
yeah. Because I talk to a lot of job hunters in my work. And what I'm seeing is there's a lot of unhappy people out there. They are employed, they don't want to be there anymore. And there's like three reasons. One, companies pushing really hard for people back in the office, and they like working remotely. They may have left like the area, for example, a lot of people bailed out of New York City, have no desire to commute and go back into town. That's one thing. The second thing that I'm seeing with a lot of people is the company through COVID has put tremendous pressure on a lot of people. They've lost
Mhm.
some, they put a lot of pressure on the managers and the people who have stayed. And so they've been working too many hours, they're exhausted, and they're saying, you know what, it's not the same company it was. And I
Mhm.
think that that's something nobody writes about or says anything, but I hear it over and over again. My company's changed. I don't like it anymore. And then the third thing that's happened is because, we're talking about this great resignation. When you say 39% of the working public wants to leave their job, that's a whole lot of people. That's millions and millions of people. And so the third thing I hear is, I hate my boss. I got a new boss. My old boss was a good boss or whatever, but I hate this new boss. They don't respect me. They're not interested in my welfare and me being advanced or blah, blah, blah. Or they pick on me. I think they're trying to push me out. There is been in I want to say over the age of 50, a lot of push to get some of those people to retire. And if you don't, oftentimes they will bring in a new manager and their attitude is, well, if we make your life miserable enough, you'll leave. So there's a lot of change going on. And I agree with you guys. The company that's flexible, the company that says, okay, we can do hybrid, you can do remote, the company that can connect with its employees, because it's hard to connect over Zoom. What a lot of people say too is, I'm lonely. I don't know these people. I don't feel attached to this company because I'm working in my bedroom. And so I don't meet anybody. I mean, there's a lot of factors that going forward in 2022 that companies got to deal with, or they're going to keep having a lot of attrition.
Yeah,
Makes
it
sense.
goes. It kind of goes. It's very interesting. JT O'Donnell had wrote a piece this morning about the great restructuring, and I know
Mhm.
that we hadn't talked about this, but you guys kind of know where we're going with this, right? The great restructuring, meaning that everything we know about work is going to basically change, and
Right.
it's because we had the pressure was applied. It's sort of like squeezing an orange. We saw that the juice wasn't all that fresh. So
No.
now, now we've got to look at work a little bit differently and how it needs to be reconstructed. So, without going into a great amount of discussion, we've had quite a robust discussion so far. What is the one thing that employers should do, not just as a trend, but something that will help for the long haul, to engage talent, to engage more talent, or to welcome more talent and make it more productive for them and make it work for them? Jack?
Um, I'd say there's not one magic bullet answer, but just to give a couple of things,
Right.
I would say have kind of micro surveys where on a regular basis, without being too intrusive and annoying, go to, and it'd be decentralized. So it's
Hmm.
not going to be a mass thing. So for each individual team, you kind of check in and see, how do you feel?
Hmm.
Are you feeling, as Rob was saying, are you feeling isolated, alone? Do you feel that there's a lack of culture? And then try to gain a sense of what their concerns are. And then once you
Hmm.
do that, address them. And then you could kind of say, oh, I see, 40% of the people are feeling isolated, 35% are feeling burnt out. So now let's take actions and do it.
Mhm.
So I think it's a combination of reaching out, asking people, what do they need? What do they want? How can they do better? And then give some actionable advice to help them do that. So I think that's kind of one of the easy first steps to do, because it doesn't take a lot of money, a lot of effort to do that. But I think the rewards will be great. And I think when we talked about people want to be appreciated, because then they appreciate, like, hey, management's reaching out. They want my opinion. They want to know how I feel. And then when you take action on it, then they're going to feel even like, oh, I can't believe they're listening. They're paying attention.
Yeah, I think listening is the operative word, and
Yeah.
that's the one thing companies should do. And be responsive. Don't be passive on these things as you're just trying to appease, just to get people to open up, and you think that's going to be the magic wand, and it doesn't work that way. Robin?
Well, I think that one thing that a company can do is the boss should reach out to the people, like you said, once a week, having all hands, everybody comes on and you talk. But there's something else. If you're a manager, I don't care where your employees are, meet them in person. Invite them to breakfast, invite them to lunch, invite them to
Mhm.
dinner. And if you have to, get on an airplane and go sit face to face. You can be 6 feet apart. I'm not going into that part, okay? Eat
Mhm.
outside, whatever the case may be. But that's the kind of connection that is going to make that person feel more valued. It's going to make them feel much more a part of the organization. It's going to improve
Mhm.
their loyalty. And we react to people differently that we've met in person than people that we just meet on Zoom. Um, People are much more comfortable just chatting about stuff. And it also allows the manager to have more insight into what does this person really value? What do they care about? How can I support their career? What kind of resources do I need to give them? So I think that the personal approach, if you make it, is going to really make a difference to how your team operates, to their loyalty, to how productive they are and what you get done, as opposed to people turning on Zoom, not showing their video, and they're not there. Okay, they are in the other room, they're doing something else, and it just looks like they're there, but they're not there. You got to
Yeah, yeah.
connect with them. Got to connect.
Great
I
points,
think.
Robin. Hannah, go ahead.
Yeah, I love where Robin was going with that, and we're sort of all saying, I think, the same thing is that managers, leaders, bosses, whatever, whoever you are in
Mhm,
the organization, your job is to go reach out to your employees and
mhm,
understand not only what their professional goals are, but what's going on right now in their life. Right?
mhm,
Mhm.
We have to be more we have to look at them as more than just an employee in the four walls of our building. They are a human being. And
mhm,
as much as they're just there to do the job, they have issues at home.
mhm,
They have stress in their life that will impact their work. If we can help them alleviate some of that stress, then that's
mhm,
going to benefit us as the manager, boss, leader, whatever. I just think if we treat people like human beings and we understand what they need and we listen and we do what we can do, at least provide them feedback. I can help you with this. I can't help you with this.
yeah.
I think that that goes a long way because, and Shelley's pointing out over here, there are a lot of people who are like on a thread because they are doing the job of three people because their other coworkers have quit. And what do you do for that person? There is no reason that anybody should be stressed because their coworkers has left. That's the
Yeah.
boss's job to fix that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that is not talked about enough is that bosses need to learn the art of diffusing the bombs before they go off, as
Mhm,
opposed to waiting for the all blow up to see who all the bomb kind of knocked off. In other words, a lot of problems could be solved if they're listening, but also there are things that people hear. And I know that the workplace dynamic is such that you can hear and feel even some things that are going on. If you know that there's going to be layoffs, there should be a something that you can do to kind of work it so that it won't seem and feel as catastrophic as you try to say. A lot of times when people ask about, hey, is there going to be a layoff? Bosses have said no. The next week they say, oh, there's layoffs, and so it's kind
yeah.
of it's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous cycle that goes on in the office, and I think when it happens over Zoom, then it's 10 times worse because then you really don't know and you really can't feel. So I think bosses really need to. That will help even when they look for talent. They can see talent. You know, there's so many tools that we have now. You can see who they are, and
Mhm,
I think up front, as opposed to 10 years ago, they're looking at, okay, who's a viable candidate, as opposed to 10 years ago they're looking at, okay, which one has the beer and had the ping pong balls in his mouth. So I think times have changed in the way we look at use the tools that are available, but you also use the instincts that you have, and listen to people, and you don't even have to even for people to say exactly what they mean if you hear the tone in which they say that. It's sort of like at home. I was giving my married son, some advice. I said, sometimes you know what's going to happen because you hear that tone from a prior conversation. So
Yeah.
you better act accordingly to that tone. Otherwise, it's all gonna blow up in your face and it's too late. But you sense something, go act on it. So I think that's something that if companies, as a result of listening, that then they should go be able to act. But sometimes you got to start to ask some questions before the bomb actually goes off, because you could save some folks possibly. So
I think we
go
have a
ahead,
little bit.
Hannah.
I think we have a little bit of a leadership vacuum. There have been years for the past, what is it, 20 years, where companies, for the most part, have not been really investing in their people by offering
Mhm.
them training and
Mhm.
development. And so as a result, we've got a lot of people who are in management leadership roles who have no real leadership development training or any real idea of how that works. That they were good at doing their job, but you know how that works.
Yeah.
So I just remember long ago, the boomers all got training. The boomers went through and they were
Mhm.
early in their career. They all got training because every company had a outsourced training to a different provider, and all the big corporations got training. That stopped happening in the 80s. So
Yeah.
there hasn't been really any replacement. They're small corporate universities, and now the employees can get it themselves, which is
Mhm.
great. And I think they're hungry for that. But there's been no corporate sort of push to what can we do to really enhance the quality of our leadership and our managers.
That's such a
Yeah.
brilliant point because
Mhm.
it's very akin to sports where you could have a great baseball player, fantastic, but then their career is over. They age out perhaps, and they become a coach or manager, and then they're a terrible coach manager.
Mhm.
Where sometimes on the opposite side, you could have a mediocre player, but then
Mhm.
be a fabulous, Ted Lasso kind of person. You're running it. So you're right. It's one of those things. It's bizarre. It's like, okay, we're going to promote you. You're a great salesperson, but now we're going to make you a sales manager. But the skills are different between a sales manager and being a salesperson, and now it's a complete mess. Uh, it's really wild how that happens.
Yeah, I agree with both of them. Um, I wrote an article for Forbes about, how to leave an awful boss behind. And that's a big motivation for people. They say, you don't leave the company as much as you leave the boss.
Mhm.
And as we go forward, these job hunters, most career professionals right now got choices. Years ago, we look back on it and it was such a tough job market. And now it's really opened up. That doesn't mean you don't need a good resume. That doesn't mean that you don't have to have really polished interview skills. You don't have to have a good LinkedIn. In fact, you need all those pieces. But you've got opportunities you never had before. So if you're in a situation where, you don't like it, you can move. And I think that makes a big difference for people realizing that they have this option. The other thing, too, is you have to fault the companies. There's very few people that will say to you, oh, we know Tom's a terrible manager, but they don't do anything about it. And so he oversees 12 people, and those people are miserable. They're not highly productive. They can't wait to move away from him or leave the company. And so, upper leadership has got to look at who are our people. Should they remain a manager? And if not, let's get them some training, some coaching, so they become better. Because you're going to drive people away if you don't do that.
Yeah, absolutely, and I completely agree with that idea of them being proactive. But for a lot of companies, it's that they don't have time for some reason. They have time, and that's usually the deal breaker to training is that we had this budget for training, then pandemic happened, so now we don't have a budget for training, and you're pretty much on your own. So a lot of people are kind of stuck out there. And that's something that Sweater Regime kind of led to when she was on the show, is that you're out there and you have a team and you're doing the best you can. Pretty much, you don't have a direction. There's not a protocol. There's not a methodology. Now, it's cool the company has a methodology and resources where they have coaches for the leaders. but of course, that's not part of the budget. So
Well, I love you,
therefore,
Mark, but here's the deal, Mark. It doesn't have to cost any money. You just match up strong leaders with
Mhm.
weak leaders. It can be done internally without
I
any
I
cost.
completely agree, but that's taking away from another part of the a brick wall they need to hold up. So they either hold up that brick wall or that part of the brick wall is going to fall. So
Mhm.
ideally, I get that, but it's important. But I think this leads to this next part of the discussion. I was going to have us share pros and cons of people doing this, but this is really more of a point, and that is that people are sharing about their bad bosses. And in turn, if companies aren't doing anything about the bad bosses, they are complicit. So I think part of the issue in the leadership aspect that everybody is up for grabs, so to speak,
Mhm.
right? They're up. I mean, if you're a bad boss, everybody in the world's going to know it. And we could say, well, job seekers shouldn't do that. Well, they've done it now. If you read subreddit,
Mhm.
if you go on Twitter, on Facebook, or any of them, they're telling the whole thing. And they're posting text messages showing the evidence of the bad
Emails.
boss and their
Yeah.
behavior. So all of that, it's more than just coaching that people actually need. You need to kind of get rid of the bad boss at some point so that you're not complicit in their behavior, because as long as you let it go on, the more it's going to carry on. Any thoughts on that, Jack?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's really no choice because, like we're talking about before, if you let that fester and you have options, see, the whole thing is this, in my opinion, in a hot market, then the employees have the cards. They have it, they have the power. If it changes, and let's say the stock market crashes, the economy doesn't do well, then it'd be tough. We might go backwards to where we were. So
Mm-hmm.
right now, because the employees have the power, they have the ability, as Robin said and Hannah, to kind of pick themselves up and go somewhere else. They're going to do it because if you have that Peter Principle boss who just rose to his level of incompetence, they're not going to stand for it anymore because they don't have to.
Right.
If you didn't have choices, you had to. Now that you
Mhm.
could
Yeah.
leave. So once again, I think it goes back to these companies, and if they're not really paying attention, they're not training their managers, they're not guiding them, they're not treating the people well, they're going to vote with their feet and leave. It was really interesting. So last night I was writing about Goldman Sachs, which was one of the companies, banks that said we want you back.
Yeah.
Working remote is an aberration, and
Mm-hmm.
now they're saying, hey, we're going to give you this benefit, that benefit. We're going to give you time off for this. We're going to give you time off for that. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Am I reading this right? Because
Yeah.
even the epitome of a top tier buttoned up conservative investment bank got the message.
Yeah.
To me,
Well,
that was really
Yeah.
illuminating.
what's
They
even
drew a
worse is
line
that
in the
they
sand.
don't.
Yeah.
What's even worse is they don't admit that they're wrong. That they were wrong to just put it out there. That's what you didn't. That's what they didn't say, and that's why companies are often tone deaf when it comes to listening. Somebody says, "I don't want to come back to work," and here you are. Well, we'll give you all these things. It's like having a bad date, and then somebody saying, "I don't want to date you anymore, but I'll give you all these things."
Uh,
It is.
It's
It
a
is. It's
nightmare.
interesting, Mark, because at that point, what happened a while back, um, you had these young bankers saying, "Hey, you're making us work 100 hours. This is
mhm.
inhumane. This is terrible. What have you?" But instead, and this is to your point, so instead of cutting their hours, they
Right?
said, "We'll give you a bonus.
Give
We'll
you
give you
both.
more
Yeah.
money." And then
Yeah.
I'm not making this up. I'm not making this
Yes,
up. It'll be like
yes.
Saturday
The thing is, you
afternoons,
can't make it up
like I think it was
because
either
it's
Saturday or Sunday
ongoing.
afternoons. Don't worry, you don't have to work. Like,
Yes,
oh
Well,
my God, they
it's
here's
an
completely
something.
didn't get the
avalanche. It
message.
really is. It's an
Well,
avalanche, Hannah.
Well, they're also trying. Goldman Sachs is also trying to get that sort of recent college or MBA
Yes,
grad, right? And they
yes,
have a very different
yes.
perspective on what they're looking for, and they're not going to compromise and work those 100 plus hours a week. They're not going to do it.
Right, because they have choices. They could go
Right.
to
Right.
Apple, they could go to Amazon, they could go to a cool startup and get stock options. So now all of a sudden, and see, that's what's a change too. It's like it used to be, all right, the best and brightest from the top universities say, I'm going to go to Goldman and be an investment banker, do M&A and do IPOs. But now they're like, wait, I could go to some cool startup, wear a hoodie, jeans, and work remotely and I could actually probably make more money because I get stock options and options.
Yeah.
Like you said, Goldman is now worried, like, oh my God, we can't take it for granted anymore. And this is going to sound really crass. I think what happens, some executives get it and they really are empathetic and they care. But others have to play the game. They're like, even if I don't believe it, well, we got to do it.
Yeah,
Well,
right.
here's what I'm seeing something that's really important because, Jack, I remember in July when sorry about that. So I remember in July when Goldman's and JP Morgan drew that line in the sand, said, you're going to come back. You live in Montana. We don't care. You want to get New York wages. You're coming back. And I was like, oh, wrong choice here, guys. You just don't get it. So I took that and I put it on LinkedIn and I said, what if your boss did this? Would you stay? Would you go in the office? Would you say, no, I'm never going to the office? Do you want a hybrid? Do you want remote? And I put it up as a poll. So I figured, yeah, maybe, 100 people respond. Thousands of people chimed in. Thousands. In fact, I couldn't acknowledge all of them because there was so many. And I thought, boy, this is a hot button. And only 20% said they'd go back into the office. And so the other thing I'm seeing is just worked with a girl. She graduated from one of the Ivies. She worked for EY, and same thing you guys are talking about. The hours were horrible. We expect you to work from 8 in the morning to midnight, and we don't care. You've got to do it no matter what. And she came and she said, you know what, I'm done here. I want to go someplace else. And I said to her, well, you've been there, a little over a year. If you want to move, you want to move. And she said, oh, all the people that came in with me, 75% of them in the last 3 months have left and moved on. And it is the workload. And she said, yeah, they pay us a lot of money, but I got no life. I don't see anybody. I'm so exhausted. I'm working 6 days a week. I can't go anyplace else. And so I think that that's what's happening. If you push them too hard, right, they're going to go. And they got the opportunities other places. So you can't treat your employees like that anymore. They're not going to stand for it. That's bottom line. And when it comes to being in the office, I think Goldman and JP Morgan realized, ooh, because their HR person said, if you do this, we're going to lose a lot of people. And they didn't listen in the beginning. But when people walk with their feet and leave, and all of a sudden they got this big, space and they need a lot of new people, sometimes that wakes them up.
Yeah, but not only that, but a lot of these comments and things that we see online are now intel and is verified. So people aren't lying in saying that my boss just chewed me out because I quit. They are there, and if you see 2 or more comments like that about the same kind of boss, and people are intelligent, they can either go to the source now and ask the question, or they can go look online to see that person's reputation and it's besmirched to the max. So now there's intel that's really real. And then you got companies that are not responding to this. So therefore, people are starting to react now. I don't have to go back there. And I think the old guard tends to still hold on to the fact that, well, job hopping's bad. But if a good talent is out there and they're available and they've been just with their past 2 companies the past 2 years, you're going to hire that person. There's no way you're going to say, nah, they're a bad fit. No, because the company can go and see where they worked and see that they had a bad reputation, much less if they're in the same industry, they're going to hear about it anyway. So, I think that, there's that idea that, yeah, we got options, and companies will say, well, no, you really don't. And then the other person says, hold my beer.
Well, keep in mind something big happened. In 2020, I saw a lot of new grads who came to me and said, hey, I had a job offer, I had an internship, and it disappeared. It all got rescinded. And so a lot of those kids from 2020, when they graduated from college, didn't get hired right away. For many of them, it took 9 months, 10 months to land their first job. Fast forward to the kids who graduated in 2021, no internships in the summer of 2020. So a lot of them graduated with no work experience. So these people are taking jobs that oftentimes they feel might be below them. They're not really interested in it, but it's a job. They stay 3 months, 4 months, something better comes along and they hop to it. And so this is how they're kind of beginning their career. I think people forget about how hard it was when the pandemic started in March of 2020 and the impact it had for the first 9 months in terms of people weren't really hiring. And these people, not just them, but people at all levels, it was very hard to move anywhere. Most of us were staying at home. We couldn't go anyplace. And so, employers kind of pulled back and said, going to wait, we're going to see. So there's that piece of the job hopping that's happening simply because of the circumstances that their career got delayed and didn't take off the way they thought it would.
Hey, Robin, it's interesting.
Go
My
ahead.
son is going through the exact same thing right now. So he
Mhm.
graduated and graduated in September. He went to Drexel University, so it had this weird kind of trimester thing. So he graduated at odd times. And it's you look for a job, and let's say you go to LinkedIn or any other site, you put in entry level, and they're saying 3 years experience, 5
Right.
years experience. And I've been in recruiting for going on 25 years, and I never noticed that before. Like this, and it was shocking. I was like, this can't be right. You know what I mean?
No,
I'll
it's
look back
everywhere.
again, and you're right. And it's really tough on these kids. And then it seems like a lot of his cohorts, I'll see on LinkedIn their profiles that they're doing internships, they're doing these co-ops, and it's almost kind of they're taking advantage of the situation by pushing out how many years to make these people kind of work for like pennies or just for free. And it's really, it seems very wrong. And Hannah, to your point, what you mentioned earlier, I wonder, is that what happened? I don't know how you feel about this too, Robin, is to me, I see a lot of ageism in the workplace. And a lot of the jobs, when you look at the jobs, they've kind of, you don't see, hey, we want 30 years of experience. We want 40 years, right? You never, ever see that. You don't even hear 20 years of experience. So it's almost saying, we don't want you guys, but we want 3 to 5 to 7 years, meaning we want younger people to do it. And I think these companies kind of dug their own grave in a little bit. So now they're kind of pushed off the Gen X's and the boomers, focus on the younger people. And the younger people are saying, just like you were saying, Hannah, hey, we're not going to deal with this. What are you, nuts? We saw our parents, what happened in the financial crisis. They lost their jobs. We saw what happened during the pandemic. They lost their jobs. I'm not going to trust any company. So, and now they're left with, all right, we're looking at this group of people who have a completely radically different way of looking at their careers and lives.
Yeah. Hannah, you can have the last word on that. Well, Robin, if you have something, you can follow. But
I will,
go ahead,
Hannah, go ahead. Ageism is really interesting. I wrote a book called Over 40 and You're Hired. And what I have seen through this whole pandemic is a huge push to retire older workers. And the carrot was out there saying, we have a retirement package. Don't you want to leave? A lot of Fortune 500 companies went through this. And the message that was said behind the closed doors that the manager said is, hey, you better take that package, because if you don't, they're probably going to push you out anyway, and you're going to walk away with nothing. And so, you're talking about millions and millions of people that retired at the end of 2020 and that are starting to retire in July and are going to retire at the end of this year. Not necessarily because it was their first choice or it was the date that they picked, but as Jack was saying, it's the problem that their current employer says, we don't want you anymore. And they look at the marketplace and say, okay, I'm 60 or I'm 61 and nobody else wants me either. And so I see that as a real challenge for a worker who's got wonderful experience, really talented, but is struggling to try to get employers interested in them because of their age.
Yeah. My wife was one of the ones that retired near the end of 2020. She retired October 31st, 2020. And it became more or less is that for years that they've already got a grant. They get grants every single year. So amazingly, it went 31 years all on a grant and having to renew it and get approved and all that kind of stuff. But then they stopped hiring people that began to leave. And so she was looking at retirement, overwork, retirement, overwork. I choose retirement because I want to live to enjoy retirement instead of working to live. So I think people had that choice too. And then what happened with a lot of the young people is that the people who retired, they didn't hire anymore. They just shoved that work down the line. So therefore, those people got overworked. It was too much work. So, there's a lot of communication aspects. I wish that would change for 2022. That I think that we're seeing a job market that's intolerant of non-change is what it's coming to. And I think if employers are going to listen, they need to also respond. I want to hear a couple of comments. Sweater heard me evoke her name uh, and came running.
That was good timing.
That's great timing. She said she just hopped on. She said, we all learn as a leader. We may have been a bad boss or been bad bosses. We need to self-reflect and work on it. Leaders need ongoing coaching and counseling, which
And
very few
mentoring.
come.
Like, and
Yeah, all of
mentoring.
that, all of that.
Because I think money and cost is a huge factor. You can learn as much from a great mentor as you can a great coach, right?
Yes,
Yes.
So,
completely, completely.
I hope more companies take that into consideration. Like,
Mhm.
buddy up that
Mhm.
newbie with a more
Mhm.
experienced worker. That's going to save you so much trouble in the long
Mhm.
run.
Yeah,
Yep, I
absolutely.
agree.
Yeah.
You're right, right. Shelley says, and this is great insight too. It says all about priorities from senior leadership. If they only care about quarter results, they let this go on. If they care about long-term results, they'll address the issues that we all talked about. So there's a lot of it. Okay, around the horn, real quick. Your one trend for 2022. Start with Jack, and we'll do Robin and Hannah, and I'll end.
So
Jack.
if things keep going the way they are, I think we're going to be in an exciting, innovative time. I think it's the kind of environment 10 years down the road, we'll look back and say, this is mind blowing. All the new businesses that are started. Think about it. We have these cryptocurrency exchanges. We have NFTs. We have, you pick up your phone and you have an app for anything you want.
Mhm.
And we're
Mhm.
taking it for granted, but it's amazing how quickly everything accelerated. So I think if we don't have some black swan event or another Omicron or whatever you want, whatever the Greek letter is next that you're going to
Yeah.
have, I think we're going to just keep growing. And even though there's, you turn on the cable news and there's all this doom and gloom and angst, I think we're in a time where it's kind of exhilarating that if you want to do something, it's almost like go out and do it. And if it succeeds, great. If it fails, no one cares. Try
Yeah.
again. And to me, that gets me up in the morning. It's really exciting to see. I mean, nothing is perfect, but it does seem like there's a lot of good stuff happening.
Yeah. Well, if there's a pie variant, I'll just be hungry and also avoid people. uh, Robin?
Um, I look at some of the particulars. Number one, I think 2022 is going to remain a very hot job market for job hunters. If you're looking to make a move, it's not going to be any better than this. I have not seen a market like this in a very, very long time in terms of the number of opportunities, how hard it is for employers to find people. Whether you're looking for a job in a restaurant, one of our local restaurants is closed 3 days a week because they can't get staff, they can't get cooks. So whether you're looking for professionals or not. A couple of things that I would recommend. And one is, I think a lot of professional people ignored LinkedIn. They did not create a
Still.
very good
Mhm.
profile. It's empty. It doesn't have, it doesn't write about them. It doesn't have a good headline, doesn't have any information whatsoever about the jobs that they've held, just the titles. And I think that's a career tool that you got to pay attention to. I'm finding that many of my clients are saying, hey, you redid LinkedIn, and oh my goodness, recruiters are reaching out to me. I'm hearing about new jobs. And the other thing that I do that's a part of that is network people, talk to people, make connections, ask about what's going on in their companies. And if you're not a company that's got what I call a magnet personality, you're the one that people's like, that's not a great place to work. It's old fashioned. They aren't with the times. You're going to keep losing people because they have the choices to move to more exciting organizations, things that they're innovative, they're making a difference. those are some of the motivators for people. Yes, it's money. Yes, it's opportunity. But a lot of people still care about, I want to go to work each day and I want to like what I'm doing. And
Mhm.
that's something I think in 2022 and 2023 is going to motivate a lot of people. I'm not happy. I'm making a move. And this is the marketplace to make that move in.
Wow. Okay, Hannah.
Wow, that's great. Okay, so I'm going to go a little political here because I think that with the infrastructure package that's been signed, we're going to see a lot more opportunities for people to do engineering,
Mhm.
construction, all of that kind of work that's going to go into the infrastructure that we so desperately need. I think, and I'm hoping that that's going to mean a lot more trades. And so maybe we'll have to let some of the fast track some of the skilled trades and how they have to do the
Mhm.
requirements for what's it called? When you have to go into a trade and you shadow people for
Apprentice.
Apprenticeship.
Apprenticeship.
Yeah.
apprenticeship. I think they're going to have to figure something out to get more people into the trades faster for that. And the trades really are sort of this beautifully magical place where there are so many opportunities and there's such an opportunity to innovate within the trades when the service providers, and we've all been there, they're apps to try and make it easier, but that's still not innovative enough. I think
Mhm.
that from high school to college to trades, I think there is where we're going to be seeing a lot more growth in the next
Mhm.
year. And I think that things are going to happen to make it a little bit more sexy, attractive,
Mhm.
to workers to want to get into that. So for all those kids that don't want to go on to college, because a lot of kids are deciding not to go on to college right away, the trades are going to be where we see things going. We didn't see a lot of kids go back and get their masters or re-enroll in school during the
Mhm.
pandemic like we
Mhm.
normally would have seen during a
Mhm.
downturn. So I think that they're looking for more tangible, viable opportunities, and I think that's the trades. So my word of 2022: trades, trades.
Great. Yeah, and I think that's good. And I think on Dr. Dunn's on careers in the past, she had someone that talked about trades. I believe that they did had a big program at the University of Pennsylvania that people can go listen to if you want to go dig out that episode. But one of the things I'm thinking and I'm believing, it makes sense for a lot of these social platforms to have their own job uh, outlet, if you will, not maybe even necessarily a job board. I think back to 2010, 2011, my friends Laura and Gary Zukowski had a company called
Tweet my
Tweet Your
jobs.
Jobs. Hannah, you
Mhm.
probably remember that.
I remember
Yep.
that.
And since then they sold that company and became Career Arc, et cetera, or Career Arc bought them. But having said that, I think it's viable for Facebook or Meta, whatever word you want to use,
Mhm.
could go back to trying to have a job, some kind of job outlet again. Or if it's not a job board, it's something similar to
A
where
hashtag, right?
Yeah.
right. And I think that's one of the things that would lead me to believe, because if you look at the history of hashtags, Twitter has a long history of hashtags, and
Mhm.
Facebook too. LinkedIn has less because they only been doing it the last 5 years, if I'm not mistaken,
Mhm.
if that long. All that to say that there's so much job and career information, it would make sense for a lot of these platforms to also have their own way for people to go to that platform to find out about an
Mhm.
employer, but also to be able to reach an employer. So those are my thoughts on that. In the meantime, we're past the top of the hour.
Oh,
So
quickly, huh?
I know we
Yeah.
could have gone on 2 hours past if we really want to. We didn't even get through what the other stuff we were going to talk about. But this is obviously was a hot topic, and we appreciate you guys who are in the chat participating, like Shelly
Mhm.
and Sweta, and some of the others. Like Sarah had chimed in, and
Sue.
yes,
Sue
Sue,
Griffey.
Sue,
Mhm.
not Sarah, Sue
Mhm.
Griffith. Yes, thank you
Mhm.
very much for chiming in. I'm going to rebroadcast this on the Voice of Job Seekers in January. That'll be the first episode. So it'll be about January 15th that we'll hear that, if that's okay with the panel.
Sure.
it'll be on the podcast because I think this was such a robust discussion. People can learn a lot from it. In the meantime, we do thank you very much for joining us. Join us next week as we have another guest. We got 2 more shows before we end for the year. Jack, thank you very much for being a great partner once and always again. And Hannah, Robin, thank you
Thank you
very
very
much for
much.
joining us.
Thanks
This
for having
was
me.
an
Great. Great.
outstanding. Be sure you follow both of them, but follow them on LinkedIn, wherever they are. They're always cranking out lots of content. And we appreciate you guys keeping us on your radar. You all have a great day. Peace in the Valley of Love.
Thanks. Excellent.
Bye.